Self-awareness is the beginning of all true transformation. It is not merely the recognition of who we are on the surface, our likes, dislikes, roles, or habits, but a deep, sustained attention to the movements of our inner world. It is the act of seeing without rushing to label, fix, or escape. In this state of watchfulness, we begin to see the many layers of the psyche, the conscious thoughts that occupy our waking mind, the subtle emotional currents that shape our responses, and the unconscious motivations that guide our behavior without our knowing. Self-awareness is a return to the self as it is, not as we wish it to be, and that return is where the healing begins. Most people walk through life reacting, not responding. They confuse momentum with direction. They repeat cycles handed down by family, culture, or past wounds, unaware that they are merely acting out a script written long before they had the power to choose. But transformation, real, lasting change, cannot occur while we remain unconscious of the script. To rewrite the story, we must first become aware of it. This is why self-awareness is not a passive observation, but a radical act of inner responsibility. It says, I will no longer be a stranger to myself. In developing self-awareness, we confront the multiplicity within us. We begin to notice that we are not a single, unified personality, but a collection of inner voices, needs, and identities, some in harmony, others in conflict. There is the inner child who still longs for approval, the inner critic who demands perfection, the rebel who resists conformity, and the sage who yearns for truth. All these parts of us have been shaped by experience and often pain. Becoming aware of them is not about control, it is about dialogue. Awareness creates the space to listen, really listen to what each part of us is trying to say. When we become aware of these inner characters, we no longer have to act them out unconsciously. Instead, we can integrate them, allowing them to become allies rather than saboteurs. This process requires courage. Self-awareness is not always comfortable. To see clearly is also to see our contradictions, our patterns of avoidance, our ego's need for superiority, or our tendency to seek validation from others. Yet there is no shame in this seeing. In fact, it is the beginning of compassion. True self-love does not come from denying our flaws, but from understanding them. The more intimately we know our inner landscape, the less we need to pretend. We begin to live in alignment, and in that alignment, transformation unfolds naturally. Self-awareness also shifts how we experience time. Most people are mentally trapped in the past or anxiously projecting into the future. When you cultivate awareness, you return to the present moment, where real life is happening. You begin to observe not only your thoughts, but the space between them. You notice the tension in your body, the tone in your voice, the micro reactions that rise when someone disagrees with you. These small acts of noticing are revolutionary. They dismantle automaticity, they interrupt the loop of reactivity and give birth to choice. This choice, the ability to respond rather than react, is the seed of transformation. When we are unaware, we are prisoners of our conditioning. But with awareness, we reclaim our power. We begin to see that we are not our thoughts, but the observer of those thoughts. We are not our fears, but the space in which fear arises. This shift in identification changes everything. It allows us to engage with life from a place of depth rather than defensiveness. We become less invested in appearances and more interested in essence. Our actions begin to align with our values, and our relationships become mirrors of our growth rather than battlegrounds for our ego. In the realm of healing, self-awareness is especially vital. Trauma and emotional wounds often bury themselves deep in the unconscious. They manifest not as memories, but as behaviors, triggers, and defense mechanisms. We may not remember the original pain, but we see its fingerprint in our relationships, addictions, and self-sabotage. Awareness brings light into these dark places. It doesn't fix the pain overnight, but it illuminates it, making healing possible. The wound can only be healed when it is seen, and to see it clearly, we must be willing to witness ourselves with honesty and compassion. Furthermore, self-awareness awakens a sense of responsibility that is empowering, not burdensome. We stop blaming others for our internal state. We realize that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can always choose how we meet them. This does not mean suppressing emotion or bypassing pain. It means owning our reactions, understanding where they come from, and deciding consciously how we want to move forward. In this sense, self-awareness is the foundation of maturity. It enables us to act from the fullness of who we are, rather than from our wound. In practical terms, cultivating self-awareness requires daily practice. It can be supported by tools like journaling, meditation, therapy, dream analysis, or simply pausing during the day to ask, what am I feeling right now? What is driving me? Over time, this inward turning becomes a way of life. It is not about perfection or constant vigilance, but about living in dialogue with oneself. In this dialogue, the self is no longer a stranger. It becomes a companion, complex, evolving, but always worth listening to. And so self-awareness becomes not just the route of transformation, but the very path we walk. It doesn't promise ease, but it offers depth. It doesn't remove all suffering, but it makes the suffering meaningful. It doesn't fix us, because we are not broken, only buried. Awareness clears the dust from the mirror, allowing us to see the truth of who we are, not a static identity, but a living process. In knowing ourselves, we reclaim our story. And in reclaiming our story, we begin, at last, to live it fully. The concept of integrating the shadow is one of the most powerful and transformative aspects of the journey toward self-realization. The shadow refers to the parts of ourselves that we deny, suppress, or reject because they are deemed unacceptable by society, family, or even our own standards. These are the qualities, behaviors, or feelings we deem too negative or flawed, and therefore we push them into the unconscious mind. The shadow is not inherently evil, but rather contains the parts of us that have been hidden away because they conflict with our conscious identity or the image we wish to project to the world. At its core, the shadow represents the untapped or undeveloped aspects of the self, the traits that, when ignored or repressed, become fragmented and disconnected from our conscious experience. While we often see the shadow as the repository of undesirable qualities like anger, jealousy, or fear, it also holds qualities of greatness such as creativity, passion, and power, which can be equally suppressed for fear of being labeled arrogant or out of control. These parts of us may never surface unless we intentionally create space for them in our conscious life. By integrating the shadow, we invite these hidden aspects into our awareness, ultimately transforming them from destructive forces into sources of personal power and wholeness. The process of shadow integration begins with acknowledging that the shadow is not an external enemy but a part of our inner landscape. It is easy to blame the world or others for the things we dislike, yet the shadow is not simply something out there, but something within us. It exists in our patterns of behavior, in our projections onto others, and in the judgments we make about the world. When we criticize or despise someone for a particular trait, we are often projecting our own shadow onto them. In this projection, we see only the negative aspects of a trait we have disowned in ourselves, refusing to accept that we, too, are capable of such behavior. The first step in integrating the shadow is recognizing our projections. This requires a high level of self-awareness. By observing our emotional reactions to people and situations, we can begin to notice patterns. If we feel intense dislike or anger towards someone, It might be a sign that there is something in that person that mirrors something within us that we are unwilling to accept. Perhaps it is a part of ourselves we have neglected or refused to acknowledge. In this moment of recognition, we have a choice. We can continue to reject the disowned aspect of ourselves, or we can turn inward and inquire, what is it about this situation or person that triggers me? This simple act of reflection is a gateway to understanding the deeper layers of our psyche and offers the possibility of integration. While projections are a primary way the shadow manifests, the shadow also appears in the form of repressed desires, fears, and impulses. We may experience sudden bursts of rage or intense jealousy that feel out of proportion to the situation. These emotional reactions can be indicators that something within us has been buried or ignored for too long. Instead of immediately labeling these feelings as bad or trying to suppress them, we can use them as an opportunity to explore what is hidden beneath the surface. Repressed anger, for example, may have roots in a deeper sense of helplessness or a fear of being powerless. By embracing these uncomfortable emotions and allowing ourselves to feel them without judgment, we begin to dissolve the walls of resistance that keep us separate from the fullness of who we are. Integration of the shadow does not mean indulging in every impulse or allowing negative traits to dominate our behavior. Rather, it means bringing these hidden aspects into consciousness so that we can choose how to respond to them. For example, the anger that has been repressed for years might, when acknowledged, be recognized as a powerful force for setting boundaries or standing up for one's needs. Similarly, the jealousy we feel when others succeed might be a signal of our own unmet desires or unrealized potential. Instead of rejecting or denying these emotions, we can learn to express them in a way that is constructive rather than destructive. To integrate the shadow is to embrace the wholeness of our being, including the parts we are afraid of or ashamed of. This process requires self-compassion and patience. It is not about forcing a change or rushing toward enlightenment, but allowing ourselves the grace to grow at our own pace. Shadow work is often messy, uncomfortable, and even painful, but it is also deeply liberating. As we begin to accept and integrate the parts of ourselves we have disowned, we experience a greater sense of inner peace, self-acceptance, and authenticity. The path of shadow integration also involves cultivating a relationship with the unconscious. Dreams, for example, are one of the most direct ways the unconscious communicates with us. The symbols, images, and emotions in our dreams often point to aspects of the shadow that need attention. By engaging in practices such as dream analysis, creative expression, or journaling, we can begin to bring these unconscious elements into conscious awareness. The unconscious is always trying to help us achieve balance and wholeness, but we must be willing to listen to its messages. As we integrate the shadow, we also begin to notice a shift in our relationships with others. When we accept our own imperfections, we are less likely to project our disowned traits onto others. Instead of seeing the world in black and white terms, we become more compassionate and understanding. We recognize that everyone carries a shadow, and we begin to accept the complexity of others as we accept our own. This shift in perspective allows us to form deeper, more authentic connections and to experience the world with greater empathy. Shadow integration also opens the door to personal empowerment. When we embrace the totality of who we are, including the parts that scare us or make us uncomfortable, we reclaim the energy that was previously tied up in repression. This energy, once liberated, becomes a source of strength, creativity, and vitality. Instead of living in fear of our darker aspects, we learn to channel them into productive, meaningful pursuits. The more we integrate our shadow, the more we realize that we are not divided into good and bad parts, but are whole beings capable of embracing the full spectrum of human experience. By making the unconscious conscious, we move toward greater self-awareness, authenticity, and freedom. Daily reflection and ritual are powerful tools for personal growth and self-healing. These practices allow us to step out of the whirlwind of daily life and reconnect with our deeper selves. In a world that often encourages distraction and busyness, it can be easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Daily reflection and ritual provide the necessary space to slow down, create stillness, and foster awareness of our inner world. They are not simply habits, they are gateways to understanding, healing, and transformation. Reflection involves pausing to look inward, to examine our thoughts, emotions, and actions. It invites us to consider what we have experienced during the day, what has moved us, and what we might have learned from those experiences. It is a form of conscious review that asks us to notice patterns, recognize areas of growth, and identify places where we may have fallen short or acted unconsciously. Through reflection, we become more attuned to the ebb and flow of our inner landscape. We begin to see ourselves not just in moments of success, but also in moments of challenge, discomfort, and failure. The act of reflecting is an essential practice for cultivating self-awareness. When we reflect daily, we are more likely to become aware of the unconscious patterns that drive our behavior. For instance, we may realize that certain triggers, such as a particular word or gesture, cause us to react in ways that don't align with our values. Reflection helps us uncover these triggers, understand their origins, and make more conscious choices moving forward. It invites us to look at our day with curiosity and honesty rather than judgment, allowing us to learn from our experiences instead of merely brushing them aside. Rituals, on the other hand, create structure and intention in our daily lives. They are acts that help ground us and connect us to something larger than ourselves. A ritual can be as simple as lighting a candle in the morning to symbolize a fresh start, or taking a few moments at the end of the day to sit in silence and express gratitude. Rituals do not need to be complex or ceremonial. They are powerful because they are regular, intentional actions that bring us back to our center. They help us to pause, to be present, and to carve out moments of sacredness amidst the chaos of daily life. Rituals create a sense of stability and continuity. When we engage in a ritual, whether it is making a cup of tea or meditating for a few minutes before bed, we are affirming a commitment to ourselves. These rituals help us cultivate mindfulness, encouraging us to be fully present in the moment, rather than distracted or overwhelmed by the demands of the external world. They remind us that we are worthy of time and attention, that we deserve to create space for inner peace and reflection, even in the busiest of times. Moreover, daily rituals can help us align our actions with our deeper values. For instance, if one of our values is connection, we might create a ritual of reaching out to a loved one each day, whether through a message, a call, or a simple gesture. Rituals help us move from the abstract concept of our values to concrete actions that reflect those values in our everyday lives. Through ritual, we bridge the gap between intention and action, creating a life that is more aligned with who we truly are. Daily reflection and ritual also serve to anchor us in the present moment. In a world that constantly pulls us into the future with worries and plans, or drags us into the past with regrets and unresolved emotions, the practice of being present is often lost. Reflection invites us to look at the here and now, to pause and acknowledge our current state. Rituals, by their very nature, pull us into the present moment. Whether it's the simple act of taking a deep breath before a meeting or practicing mindfulness during a walk, Rituals offer a way to stay rooted in the now without being swept away by the tides of distraction or anxiety. In addition to grounding us in the present, reflection and ritual create a sense of meaning in our lives. These practices encourage us to seek deeper purpose in everything we do. For example, when we reflect on our day, we might ask ourselves what we have learned, how we have grown, and where we can improve. This reflection transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for growth, helping us see the deeper meaning in even the most mundane tasks. Similarly, rituals often carry symbolic significance, connecting us to a greater sense of purpose. Whether it is lighting a candle to mark the beginning of a new day or writing in a journal to honor our journey, rituals help us step into our lives with intention and a sense of reverence. The impact of daily reflection and ritual extends beyond the individual. When we engage in these practices regularly, they affect not only our inner world, but also our relationships and the way we engage with others. For example, a ritual of morning meditation can center us and calm our minds, enabling us to approach interactions with others from a place of patience and understanding rather than frustration or distraction. Similarly, by reflecting on our actions and behaviors, we can become more aware of how we show up in our relationships, identifying places where we may need to apologize, set boundaries, or be more compassionate. The practice of daily reflection and ritual also nurtures a deeper connection to ourselves. In the busyness of life, it is easy to lose touch with our desires, our feelings, and our true needs. Reflection offers us the space to listen to our inner voice, to check in with ourselves and ask what we need to feel balanced, fulfilled, and at peace. Rituals help us create moments of self-care, offering a chance to nourish our bodies, minds, and spirits. Whether it's through a soothing cup of tea, a walk in nature, or a few minutes of quiet meditation, these practices help us reconnect with our deepest needs and desires. The beauty of daily reflection and ritual lies in their simplicity and consistency. They do not require grand gestures or complicated routines. They are small, intentional practices that, when done regularly, create profound change in our lives. They help us cultivate presence, mindfulness, and self-awareness, all of which are essential for living a life that is authentic, grounded, and aligned with our deepest values. Through daily reflection and ritual, we learn to slow down, listen to ourselves, and create space for healing and transformation. These practices offer us the tools to navigate life with greater clarity, purpose, and peace. Active imagination and creativity are deeply interconnected processes that serve as vital tools for personal growth, emotional healing, and self-discovery. They are pathways through which we engage with the unconscious mind, bringing forth hidden truths, unresolved conflicts, and untapped potential. Through active imagination, we enter into a dynamic dialogue with the unconscious, allowing images, symbols, and emotions to surface in the form of spontaneous thoughts, dreams, or creative expressions. Creativity, in its many forms, whether visual art, writing, music, dance, or any other mode of self-expression, offers a channel through which these unconscious elements can be explored and integrated into conscious awareness. Active imagination is a process that allows individuals to engage with their inner world by focusing on an image, thought, or feeling, and then allowing it to unfold naturally in the mind, often without a specific intention or outcome. It is a conscious engagement with the unconscious, where thoughts, memories, images, and even fantasies are allowed to emerge and be explored without censorship or judgment. This practice helps to bridge the gap between the conscious mind and the unconscious, enabling a deeper understanding of the self and its inner workings. Active imagination is often employed in a variety of therapeutic practices, particularly in depth psychology, where it is used as a tool for integrating disowned parts of the psyche, addressing unresolved conflicts, and fostering emotional healing. The practice of active imagination begins with an intention to listen to the unconscious. It is not a process of forcing the mind into a particular direction or outcome, but rather an act of receptivity. One might start by focusing on a symbol or image that arises in their mind, perhaps something from a dream or a fleeting thought, and then allowing it to develop further. Through this process, the unconscious may communicate in the form of archetypal images, internal dialogues, or representations of emotional states. For instance, one might encounter a figure in their imagination, such as a wise old man or a mythical creature, and engage in a conversation with this figure, exploring the messages it brings. Alternatively, the image may morph into something else entirely, and the individual might allow themselves to follow it wherever it leads. Active imagination requires a willingness to let go of the need for control and instead to trust the flow of the unconscious mind. The benefits of active imagination are manifold. First and foremost, it fosters self-awareness by helping individuals explore the hidden aspects of the psyche that may otherwise remain buried. Our unconscious mind holds a wealth of information, including repressed memories, unresolved emotions, and aspects of our personality that we may be reluctant to acknowledge. Active imagination allows us to access these parts of the self, bringing them to light in a way that is both gentle and profound. This can lead to greater emotional clarity as we begin to understand the origins of certain feelings or behaviors that may have previously been confusing or overwhelming. By engaging with these unconscious elements, we can integrate them into our conscious awareness, leading to a sense of wholeness and self-acceptance. Moreover, active imagination allows for the expression of emotions that may be difficult to articulate with words. For many people, certain feelings or experiences are so deeply buried that they cannot easily be accessed through traditional talk therapy or verbal processing. Through active imagination, however, these emotions can be given a voice, whether through the dialogue with an imagined figure or through the creative act itself. This process helps to release pent-up emotional energy, allowing individuals to confront and process difficult emotions in a way that feels safe and cathartic. It provides an outlet for emotional expression that is free from the constraints of logical reasoning or societal expectations, offering a sense of liberation and healing. Creativity, in its various forms, also plays a crucial role in the process of self-discovery and transformation. It serves as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, providing a means of expressing what cannot be easily spoken or understood. Through creativity, we can give form to the invisible, allowing inner experiences and emotions to take shape in the external world. The creative act, whether it be painting, writing, music, dance, or any other form of artistic expression, serves as a mirror to the soul, reflecting the deeper currents of our inner lives. It is through the act of creation that we can externalize our internal world, providing a tangible form for the intangible. Creativity has the power to heal by providing a safe space for exploration and expression. It allows individuals to explore their fears, desires, and uncertainties in a non-threatening way. For example, an artist may create a painting that represents their deepest anxieties, or a writer may craft a story that expresses their inner conflict. By externalizing these feelings, they can gain a sense of control over them, transforming them from internal struggles into objects of contemplation and understanding. In this way, creativity becomes a therapeutic tool that helps individuals process and make sense of their inner experiences. Furthermore, creativity encourages playfulness and spontaneity, qualities that are often neglected in adulthood, but are essential to the well-being of the psyche. As children, we naturally engage in creative play, allowing ourselves to explore different aspects of our personality and experiment with new ideas. However, as we grow older, we often lose touch with this spontaneous creativity as we become more focused on productivity, achievement, and external validation. Reclaiming creativity as an adult allows us to reconnect with the playful, curious parts of ourselves that are free from judgment and expectation. It reminds us that life itself is an act of creation, and that by embracing our creativity, we tap into a wellspring of vitality and joy. The process of active imagination and creativity is also deeply connected to the concept of individuation, a central idea in depth psychology. Individuation refers to the process of becoming the unique, whole individual we are meant to be. It is the journey of integrating the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self, of accepting all parts of ourselves, both light and dark, and creating a harmonious balance between them. Active imagination and creativity are integral to this process, as they provide the means to engage with and integrate the unconscious mind. Through these practices, we are able to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have repressed or ignored, ultimately bringing them into the light of conscious awareness. This process of integration is essential for personal growth, as it allows us to become more fully aligned with our true self. In this way, active imagination and creativity are not merely therapeutic practices, they are pathways to self-realization. They allow us to engage with the mysteries of the unconscious, uncovering hidden truths, resolving internal conflicts, and embracing the fullness of our being. Through these practices, we learn to trust our intuition, follow the flow of our inner life, and express ourselves freely and authentically. They offer us the tools to explore the depths of our psyche, to heal emotional wounds, and to create a life that is rich with meaning and purpose. By cultivating active imagination and creativity, we open ourselves to the endless possibilities that lie within, and we embrace the transformative power of the unconscious mind. Detachment from the false persona is a transformative and often challenging process that involves shedding the layers of identity we have constructed over time in response to societal pressures, familial expectations, or our own insecurities. The false persona is essentially the mask we wear in order to fit into the world, to gain approval, to avoid criticism, or to project an image of ourselves that we believe others want or expect to see. It is a persona that may not reflect our true essence, but rather a version of ourselves shaped by external influences, which can lead to feelings of disconnection, dissatisfaction, and even inner turmoil. The false persona is developed as a defense mechanism, often during childhood, when we begin to form ideas about who we need to be in order to be loved, accepted, or valued. We adapt to the roles assigned to us by others: the overachiever, the caretaker, the rebel, the quiet one, the performer, and we start to believe these roles define who we are. Over time, these roles become so ingrained in our identity that we forget what lies beneath them. The false persona becomes the lens through which we view the world and interact with others, and it can shape how we think, feel, and behave in ways that are not true to our authentic self. In many cases, the false persona is not necessarily something we actively choose, but rather something that emerges unconsciously as a response to the external demands placed on us. We may have internalized beliefs from our family, culture, or society about what it means to be successful, good, or worthy, and these beliefs shape our behavior and sense of self. This persona can become so dominant that it feels like the only way to exist in the world. As a result, we may experience feelings of emptiness, confusion, or frustration, as we struggle to reconcile the gap between who we truly are and who we have been conditioned to be. Detaching from the false persona requires a deep level of self-awareness and the willingness to confront the aspects of ourselves that have been shaped by external expectations. It involves questioning the beliefs and behaviors that have defined our identity and asking ourselves whether they are truly aligned with our core values and authentic desires. This process of detachment often begins with recognizing the ways in which we have constructed a false image of ourselves, and the many ways in which we maintain this image in our interactions with others. One of the first steps in detaching from the false persona is developing the courage to be vulnerable. Vulnerability requires us to let go of the protective armor we have built around ourselves and to show up in the world without pretending to be something we are not. It means acknowledging that we do not have to be perfect or in control all the time, and that it is okay to make mistakes or express emotions that are considered weak or unattractive by societal standards. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for our true self to emerge, unencumbered by the need to perform or conform to others' expectations. As we begin to detach from the false persona, we also start to recognize the ways in which we have been performing for others. We may notice how we adjust our behavior in order to gain approval, how we hide certain parts of ourselves out of fear of rejection, or how we wear different masks depending on the people we are with. This awareness can be uncomfortable as it forces us to confront the ways in which we have been living inauthentically, but this discomfort is also the beginning of liberation. When we acknowledge that we have been hiding behind a false persona, we take the first step toward reclaiming our true self. The process of detaching from the false persona also involves letting go of the need for external validation. For much of our lives, we may have sought validation from others in the form of praise, recognition, or approval. We have been conditioned to believe that our worth is determined by how others see us or how well we measure up to societal standards. As we begin to detach from the false persona, we recognize that our worth does not depend on external validation, but rather on our own internal sense of value. We start to trust ourselves more deeply and let go of the constant need for reassurance from others. A key part of this process is learning to listen to our inner voice and trust our intuition. The false persona often drowns out this inner wisdom as it is driven by external influences rather than internal truth. When we begin to detach from the false persona, we create space for our authentic desires, needs, and values to come to the forefront. We become more attuned to what truly matters to us rather than what we have been taught to value. This shift allows us to make choices that are more aligned with our true self, rather than with the expectations of others. Detaching from the false persona also involves embracing our shadow. The shadow is the part of ourselves that we have repressed or denied because it does not fit with the image we want to project to the world. It is the part of us that holds the qualities we consider undesirable or unacceptable, such as anger, fear, jealousy, or selfishness. The false persona often operates by repressing the shadow, presenting a curated version of ourselves that only shows the qualities we think others will accept. In order to fully detach from the false persona, we must acknowledge and integrate our shadow, accepting all parts of ourselves, both the light and the dark. This process of integration is not about eliminating the shadow, but rather about recognizing it as a natural part of our being. When we accept our shadow, we stop seeing ourselves as fragmented or incomplete and begin to embrace our wholeness. The more we accept all aspects of ourselves, the less we feel the need to hide behind the false persona. We no longer need to project an image of perfection or put on a mask to gain approval. Instead, we can step into our true power and authenticity, free from the constraints of societal expectations or internalized beliefs. Detaching from the false persona also means embracing the idea of impermanence. The false persona is often rooted in a desire to maintain control and certainty, but life is inherently uncertain and ever-changing. As we let go of the need to cling to a rigid image of ourselves, we open up to the fluidity of life and allow ourselves to evolve. This evolution is a natural part of the human experience, and by embracing it, we release the pressure to stay the same or to maintain a fixed identity. We can allow ourselves to grow, change, and adapt without feeling like we are losing who we truly are. The journey of detaching from the false persona is a lifelong process. It is not something that happens overnight, but rather a continual process of self-exploration, self-acceptance, and self-expression. As we release the false persona, we make room for our true self to emerge with all its complexities, contradictions, and imperfections. We learn to live more authentically, trusting ourselves and embracing the beauty of our unique and ever-evolving journey. The more we detach from the false persona, the more we become free to live as our true selves, unencumbered by the need for external approval or validation. Alignment with purpose and archetype is a journey that leads individuals toward a deeper understanding of themselves and their place in the world. It is about discovering the guiding forces within us that shape our actions, choices, and perceptions. Purpose refers to the overarching direction or goal that gives our lives meaning, while archetypes are the universal symbols or patterns of behavior that reside in the collective unconscious. Together, they create a foundation for living an authentic life that is in harmony with both our inner selves and the world around us. Purpose is often thought of as the reason we wake up every day. It is what gives our life direction, focus, and meaning. Yet many people struggle to define their purpose, feeling lost or uncertain about what they are meant to do with their lives. This uncertainty often arises because purpose is not a singular, static thing. It is a dynamic and evolving force that changes over time, just as we do. It is influenced by our values, desires, and experiences, and it emerges through the process of self-discovery. To align with our purpose, we must listen deeply to our own desires and intuitions, understand our core values, and engage in practices that bring clarity and insight. The search for purpose is often accompanied by a desire to make a meaningful contribution to the world. This sense of contribution can take many forms. It might involve pursuing a career that helps others, creating art that inspires, or raising a family that nurtures love and connection. When we align with our purpose, we feel a sense of fulfillment that goes beyond external achievements or validation. The work we do feels deeply connected to who we are, and every step we take feels aligned with our values and passions. This sense of alignment provides a sense of internal peace, even when external circumstances are challenging. It is the feeling of being on the right path, regardless of the obstacles we may encounter along the way. Archetypes, on the other hand, are the timeless, universal patterns of behavior and experience that are embedded in the collective unconscious. These archetypes shape how we perceive ourselves and the world, influencing our decisions, relationships, and life stories. They represent the fundamental aspects of human nature and experience, such as the hero, the shadow, the sage, the lover, the rebel, the caregiver, and many others. Each of us carries the energy of these archetypes within us, and they influence the roles we play in life, often without us even realizing it. To align with our purpose, it is essential to understand the archetypes that resonate most deeply with us. These archetypes act as internal blueprints, guiding us toward experiences and opportunities that align with our soul's true calling. For example, someone with a strong connection to the hero archetype might feel driven to overcome personal challenges, fight for justice, or embark on an adventure of self-discovery. A person embodying the sage archetype may be drawn to wisdom, teaching, and the pursuit of truth. The lover archetype may be more focused on relationships, beauty, and deep emotional connections with others. These archetypes help to clarify our purpose by highlighting the fundamental energies that shape our desires, goals, and actions. While these archetypes provide valuable guidance, they are not rigid categories that define us entirely. Each individual expresses these archetypes in unique ways, depending on their personal experiences, background, and temperament. The archetypes themselves are fluid and multidimensional, meaning that we may embody different aspects of various archetypes throughout our lives. For example, we might begin our journey embodying the innocent archetype, full of hope and optimism, and later evolve into the warrior archetype, driven by a sense of purpose and determination. As we grow and evolve, different archetypes may come to the forefront, providing new insights and guidance for our changing life circumstances. The process of aligning with purpose and archetype requires a willingness to explore the depths of our inner world and to confront the unconscious forces that shape our identity. It involves cultivating self-awareness and self-acceptance, as well as being open to the wisdom that emerges from within. This process is not always easy, as it may require us to confront uncomfortable truths, let go of old patterns, and step into new roles that feel unfamiliar or challenging. However, it is through this process of growth and transformation that we can fully align with our purpose and archetype, creating a life that is truly authentic and meaningful. One way to begin aligning with our purpose is through introspective practices such as journaling, meditation, and creative expression. These practices provide the space for us to reflect on our desires, values, and dreams, and to connect with the deeper aspects of our psyche. Journaling, for example, can help us clarify our thoughts and emotions, allowing us to explore what truly matters to us and what we feel called to do. Meditation allows us to quiet the mind, listen to our intuition, and connect with the deeper wisdom that resides within us. Creative expression, whether through art, music, or writing, allows us to tap into our unconscious and bring forth the symbols, images, and archetypes that reflect our inner truth. Engaging with these practices helps us develop a clearer sense of our purpose, as we begin to understand the deeper desires and motivations that drive us. It also helps us identify the archetypes that resonate most strongly with us. For example, we may notice recurring themes in our dreams, stories, or creative projects that point to a particular archetype. By reflecting on these themes, we can begin to recognize the patterns of behavior, attitudes, and beliefs that shape our life journey. This awareness allows us to make more conscious choices and to move forward in alignment with our true purpose. Another way to align with purpose and archetype is by examining our life experiences and identifying moments when we felt most fulfilled, inspired, or connected to our true selves. These moments can serve as clues to our purpose, as they often reflect times when we were living in alignment with our soul's calling. Whether it was a time when we felt deeply engaged in a project, experienced a sense of flow, or felt deeply connected to others, these experiences reveal the aspects of our life that bring us the most joy and satisfaction. By reflecting on these moments, we can gain valuable insights into the direction we are meant to move in and the archetypal energies that are guiding us. Alignment with purpose and archetype also requires a willingness to trust the process of life. As we deepen our understanding of ourselves and our true calling, we may encounter doubts, fears, or uncertainties. We may question whether we are on the right path or whether we are truly living in alignment with our purpose. It is important to remember that the journey toward alignment is not linear or straightforward. There will be moments of confusion, setbacks, and challenges. However, by staying connected to our inner wisdom and continuing to explore the archetypes that guide us, we can remain open to the unfolding of our purpose and trust that we are being guided toward the life that is meant for us. Through alignment with purpose and archetype, we are able to create a life that feels deeply meaningful and authentic. We stop living in accordance with external expectations or societal pressures, and instead follow the guidance of our inner compass. We embrace our true nature, embody our archetypes, and live with intention, clarity, and purpose. This alignment leads to a profound sense of fulfillment and connection as we move through life with a sense of direction and authenticity, guided by the archetypal forces that shape our soul's journey.